Dead by Daylight, a game synonymous for either being a really fun, addicting game, or a game that annoys the shit out of you, but you still can't stop playing. It's funny to think that Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical horror game that has made it to 5 years and still going strong, but that doesn't mean that Dead by Daylight is a perfect game in any way, but it is also really fun to play as well. So I thought me and a couple of other friends might want to share our own thoughts about the game and how we feel how the game state is. This is Dead by Daylight through the eyes of the nobodies. So how I'm going to break this video up, it's going to be split into 3 different parts: survivor, killer, and then my final thoughts as well as my friends' final thoughts about the game. I'll be giving a breakdown on how both survivor and killer work, as well as problems that I've personally had playing both. So with the explanation out of the way, let's get to it. We're going to be starting off on Survivor. The basics of Survivor is you have one objective and then several secondary objectives. What do I mean by this? Your primary objective is to do generators around the map. There's 7 generators on every map, but you only have to do 5 to try to escape. Once all 5 generators are done, 2 exit gates will be available to open. It takes time to open up these exit gates, but once they're open, you can escape and you win the match. The secondary objectives mostly include clearing totems, healing survivors, unhooking survivors, and in general, trying to not get caught by the killer. There's 5 totems that spawn on every map. It isn't inherently necessary to clear totems, but it is useful in case if the killer has a really powerful perk, which is restricted to totems, which is called a hex perk, which we'll get into later once we get into the killer portion. Healing and unhooking survivors is also a secondary objective to ensure a better chance of survival and escaping. What do I mean? Well, in a normal circumstance, a killer will have to hit a survivor twice to bring them into the down state. Once they're in the down state, the killer can pick up a survivor and take them to a hook and hook them. Every survivor normally has 2 hook states, but then the last hook is a death hook. Survivors can try to save another survivor when they're being carried or being picked up by either trying to flashlight save or body block the killer and try to sabotage a hook, so then the hook is destroyed so they have to move on to another one. While this is all going down, the survivor who's being carried has to wiggle out using the A and D key, or if you're playing on controller, the joystick. Once this wiggle bar fills all the way up, you fully escape from the killer and you run off and you might have a second chance. But a lot of the time, that won't be the case. The killer will just end up hooking you, you'll be in the hook state, and a survivor has to come and save you, which is not a big deal most of the time. Once you unhook a survivor, or a survivor was successfully able to escape from a killer, but they got hit, you're gonna have to heal them. You can heal a survivor normally, but it takes a while. Or you can use a med kit, which speeds up the process by a lot. Speaking of med kits, that's one of the few items a survivor can bring. Items are also something a survivor can bring into a trial. There are multiple different tiers of items, but the items are mostly the same. You got med kits, toolboxes, flashlights, and maps. And then you got keys. Each one, of course, has a different purpose. Toolboxes are used for sabotaging hooks or doing generators faster. Flashlights are used to blind killers or flashlight save survivors when they're being picked up by a killer, but this requires timing. Medkits are there to also let you heal survivors at a faster rate or let you self-heal yourself if necessary. Maps are there to let you look for totems, generators, hooks, and if you brought an add-on, or if you have the ultra rare map, let you look for the hatch, which we'll talk about in a second. Keys. There are 3 different keys, but only 2 of them are useful. The purple and the red key are the only useful keys that you will actually need to use in-game. What do they do? Well, the main thing that they let you do is open up the hatch. What is the hatch? Well, it's a secondary way that a survivor can escape. As of currently, the hatch can spawn in different ways. If all 4 survivors are alive and all gens are done, you can either use the exit gates to escape, or if you have a key, you can look for the hatch and escape that way. If 3 survivors are alive, but there's 1 generator left, the hatch would have spawned by now, and you can also use a key to escape. And if 2 survivors are alive and 2 gens are still needing to be done, then the hatch would have spawned already as well, and you need a key yet again to open. But if you are the last survivor, the hatch will spawn no matter what, and it will be automatically open for you to escape through, unless the killer goes up to it and closes it, which then you can use a key to yet again open it and escape. This is how hatches currently work in the current build of the game, but in the PTB, the player testing build, the hatch only spawns if there's 1 player left no matter what. Now with what you're supposed to do in-game out of the way, let's talk about the survivors themselves. In the game currently, there are 28 playable survivors that originate either from original survivors that the game developers have made themselves, or licensed survivors, which are from horror movies or horror video games. The original survivors consist of Dwight, Meg, Claudette, Jake, Nia, Ace, Fang, David, Kate, Adam, Jeff, Jane, Yui, Zarina, Felix, Elodie, Youngjin Lee, and then the newest survivor coming out in the next update, Michaela. The licensed survivors consist of Laurie Strode, Bill, Quentin Smith, Detective Tapp, Ash Williams, Nancy Wheeler, Steve Harrington, Cheryl Mason, Jill Valentine, Leon Kennedy. The way you go about unlocking the survivors is, if they're a licensed survivor, you have to pay real money. If they're an original survivor, you can use one of the 2 in-game currencies. Auroric cells, which are obtained by purchasing with real-world money, or iridescent shards, which are obtained by gameplay. Every survivor has their own unique set of perks. These perks are either really good or kind of bad. These perks are limited to those survivors, but you can unlock more perks, and eventually you can unlock the perk for other survivors to use. It takes time, and it's a grind, but it's all worth it in the end if you want a better survivor experience. That's pretty much everything that I can think of that you need to know on how to play Survivor. Now I'm going to talk about Survivor and how I feel about Survivor and problems that I've ran into personally while playing Survivor. So, first things first that I got to talk about, the hitbox and desync issue that has plagued this game since its release. It's mostly the hitbox portion of this that seemed to plague people the most versus the desync issue. But what it is Dead by Daylight's hitboxes aren't good at all. Like, none whatsoever. You could be vaulting a window to get away from a killer, and you could be several steps in and he still hit you as if you were still back at the window. This is both caused by desync and hitbox issue, and it gets annoying as shit. There have been so many situations where I shouldn't have been hit, but because of desync and hitbox registration, I got hit. For an example, take a look at this clip.
Okay.
How did that down me? Right there. You're telling me that hit me? In what universe did that hit me, bro? I don't understand it. It's been 5 years and they still don't know how to fix it. And you can make the argument like, ooh, it's a hard thing. Every game has wonky hitboxes. But for 5 years? They haven't fixed it? I'm just saying. Another thing that I personally have had a lot of problems with in more recent times is the amount of killers using Noed. And what Noed is, it's a hex totem that rewards a killer for losing. What do I mean by this? Well, Noed, or No One Escapes Death, activates when all 5 gens are done. Once all 5 gens are done, Noed activates onto a dull totem if there are still any left on the map. And that means a survivor moves 4% faster and they can one-hit down you no matter what. This normally isn't a problem if you do your totem hunting job correctly, but mostly every survivor does not do totems because it's in the back of their head and they don't think they need to. So what ends up happening is all 5 gens are done. There's still a totem out on the map. Noed activates, and you're frantically either trying to escape or find Noed or both. But sometimes it isn't a problem because most killers aren't losers and they don't bring a perk that rewards them for losing. Another problem I have is mainly with one killer, and the killer's called Spirit. But with this next update coming out, Spirit isn't going to be as annoying as she usually is. That's about it for the survivor portion of this. Now let's move on to Killer, shall we? Hoo boy, Killer. Well, let's go ahead and start with the basics and continue on from there. So, there are 25 playable killers currently, and just like survivors, there's licensed and original killers that you can choose from. The original killer list consists of the Trapper, the Wraith, the Hillbilly, the Nurse, the Hag, the Doctor, the Huntress, the Clown, the Spirit, Legion, Plague, Oni, Deathslinger, Blight, Twins, Trickster, and that's about it for now. Just like survivors, there's also licensed killer that derive from horror video games or horror movies, consisting of Michael Myers, Bubba Sawyer or Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, Amanda Young from Saw, Ghostface, which in here is both a licensed and original killer. That's more about lore. Demogorgon from Stranger Things, Pyramid Head from Silent Hill, Nemesis from Resident Evil, and the latest to be added to the roster is the Cenobite Pinhead. Every killer has their own unique power or ability that is used to try to kill the survivors with, such as Trapper has bear traps, hence the name Trapper, or the Huntress, which her ability is she can throw small hatchets at you from long distances. Usually killers' names correlate to what their power does, or if you've ever seen the horror movie or played the horror video game, you automatically know what they're known for, such as Leatherface has a chainsaw, Freddy Krueger is all about dream stuff. Pinhead has chains and uses the lament configuration, and etc. Each one has their own unique ability and powers, and as well as their own teachable perks, just like Survivor. Now, while killers have regular perks, they also have what's called a hex perk, which is usually a really powerful perk, but it's limited to a totem, so then it just isn't overpowered completely. An example of a hex perk is Ruin. What Ruin does is you don't have to kick a gen to immediately start regressing progress on said gen. It automatically starts doing it for you as long as a survivor is not working on said gen. Another one is Noed, like I mentioned before, lets you one hit down a survivor in any state and also let you move 4% faster. As a killer, your primary goal is to kill survivors or prevent them from working on gens and escaping. How this is done is you hit survivors either with a normal mouse 1 or primary attack, or you can use their power if their power allows it. For an example, when a survivor is trapped in a bear trap, they immediately are in the injured state unless the trapper's there, which then the trapper can pick them up straight off from the bear trap and put them on a hook, or decide to hit them and then pick them up. But along with their powers, instead of having an item, they have add-ons. Just like the survivors have add-ons for their items, killers only have add-ons for their power. For an example, Trapper has an add-on that automatically resets a bear trap for you every 30 seconds, so you don't have to go back and reset it. Or he has another add-on that if a survivor disarms a trap, they immediately go into the injured state. Just like different qualities of survivor items, there's different qualities of Trapper add-ons that go from brown all the way to red. Of course, brown being the lowest and red being the highest. Add-ons are kind of there to act as filler perks basically, or to help out a killer more when they're lacking in some situations. The add-ons are usually about 50-50. They're either really good or really shitty. In most cases, they're kind of good or even borderline broken and overpowered, but then some killers only have about 4 add-ons that are even worth bringing because the rest are just complete garbage. But anyways, back to what I was saying about killer objectives. The killer's objective is, like I said, stop the survivors at basically any cost necessary by hitting gens so then they start regressing, hooking survivors, having pressure on survivors so they don't have time to work on gens. And that's really about it. That's about it on killer as much as I can think of. Killer's a pretty basic thing to play, and it's really just kind of about skill and how you play. Now, some problems I have when I'm playing as killer is, as much as I don't want to say it, this is a survivor-sided game. I am a Survivor main. I've been a Survivor main for quite some time, and I can safely say that this game is mostly Survivor-sided. What do I mean by this? Well, already you got 4 people versus 1. On top of that, they could be Survivor with friends or a Swift, which means they're all in a Discord call together giving callouts and saying certain strategies, Another thing that I also had problems with is having a good ping. Now, while that seems to sound absolutely dumb, it kind of makes sense in a game like this when you think about it. But other than those 2 things, I don't really see a problem too much when playing Killer. So we made it. We're at the end. This portion is basically just going to be about how I feel about the game and how my friends feel about the game as well. How do I feel about it? I love this game, but there are a shit ton of problems with it. Does it make it a bad game? No. Does it make it more annoying? Yeah. But overall, I think the only way Dead by Daylight can go is up from here. Because with this new update, they're balancing and fixing a lot of add-ons and perks, which is good, because we haven't had something like this in a while. A rebalance, basically. And I can only hope that they start fixing more of the game engine, as well as other mechanics in the game, so it makes it a little bit more fair and balanced for everybody. I have gotten addicted to this game. I have had a falling out in this game. I got back into it again. All in the span of a year. All in the span of 2 years, actually. And this game is something different that isn't out there in this genre of games. It's the only one that I can think of that has succeeded in an asymmetrical horror style that is still going 5 years later. I've met new friends on here. I've met a whole community that I feel is more welcoming than most, sometimes. And while I love this game to death, I really hope to see it succeed more and more. As well as my own thoughts, I thought it'd be a good idea to bring in my friends and other people that I know who play this game or stream it, or just are there with other friends who want to play it. And I asked them 2 simple questions. And the questions were, if you could sum up Dead by Daylight in 1 word, what would it be? And the other question was, give me your whole Dead by Daylight experience and how you feel about the game. And here are the responses I got. Broken.
Aggravating.
Chaos. Tiring.
Beta.
Shitty. Unfair.
It's unique.
Commitment. Okay, well, I've played on multiple servers, right? I came from console. I played console in like the Pacific region, so I played a lot with like Russia and Japan, as well as the northwest of Northern America, and I think Korea too. So I've played in those kind of servers. I think that it's very different there, but now playing in more like American servers, it has been a different experience, and I think that for me, it's been a love-hate relationship, something where it's like, and that I think that's kind of what brings me back to the game, is that love-hate relationship, because you can always get into another match, and it will be a completely different game from the last one, and so the randomness of the game is why it's able to hold so many people in for so long with only one fucking mode, and it basically being a mode that can be over in 2 minutes. If it is a very special formula they have there, and it very much toes a line, and it very much crosses into both sides of the equation at certain times. There are times where the game is pretty unplayable, whether it be because of something that happened internally in the game or people's behavior in a game. A rash of new players, what have you, acting very inappropriate. Not inappropriately, I guess, just rude in a way that you wouldn't act if you knew that what you were doing looked really bad, right? And then there's times where like just recently they came out with an update where we're like, oh my god, hit detection is so good. And there are times where they come out with killers that are just amazing, who like make you want to play against them. You're like, oh my god, Deathlinger, you can fucking shoot me? What? I loved him. We won't get into the twins or Spirit, because I think they missed the mark with that. But like overall, I think my experience with it has been more positive than negative, and a back and forth relationship I've been glad to keep up for years.
I think Dead by Daylight is pretty fun. It has a lot of issues, I think. They keep making really annoying just things to go against for both sides. Because I don't really play killer, so I can't have too much of a say on like what survivor perks are like just stupid powerful, because I don't really experience them too much because I just play survivor. But I do know that there's a lot of killers and killer powers and killer perks that I just find, they're pretty annoying to go against. And I don't like how the twins are in the game and they just incentivize camping and slugging because their power is made like that. Or how your average casual DVD player, it's a casual game and everything, but your normal average casual DVD player has a hard time going against things like the Spirit because she doesn't give off a lot of information on where she's going, So you're basically just having to like feel it out. And I don't understand why they have to break literally everything in their game every update, like every content release thing. Their game shits itself. They can't handle it. Cause like you had the Twins release. Twins release was desync, player hit desync like that. I don't understand how that happened. And then straight after fixing it, they fixed it somewhat, and then they released Trickster, and then they broke pallets, and pallets didn't work anymore. There was like the whole game literally shit itself. I forgot. Never mind. I don't play on console, so I forgot about that. But consoles literally had the worst time. The new map had to be disabled for half an hour, not half an hour, for like literally the first bit of the chapter because it couldn't function without crashing games and stuff. So like their optimization is not very good, and they just keep pushing out new content when I really think they just need to go in and fix all the problems in their game. But with all that said, I don't think Dead by Daylight is like a terrible game. I think they make bad decisions every once in a while when they add things that aren't that fun. They kind of just focus a lot on like cosmetics and just pushing out new content, which makes sense because new content's what drives people in. But I don't see if they keep doing that, I don't see why they don't fix their game first. Like I can see they're trying to. Like they really did good with the they fixed a lot of desync issues like pallets and stuff. Pallets feel so nice now. I will give them that. But there's still like desync issues that I think are just really bad compared to other games. But even with all the bad, the game is really fun. Like it was unique for its time, and it's still pretty unique compared to everything else. And overall, I think I actually really enjoy the game. I mean, I spent a certain amount of time in it, and I've only been playing for like a year. But yeah, with all their like issues and things, I think DVD is actually really fun and actually really good. They just need to work on some things here and there and just make overall the game the best it can be.
I mean, like if we're starting from the very beginning, when I played it on Xbox with friends, like leaving the game kind of in it is like that was one of the games that brought like my friends closer together, and it was just a fun game to play. And then as the game grew and became more and more I guess popular with streamers and everybody else, I'd say the friendship still grew, but we kind of grew out of the game just because of how toxic some people can be in the game. So I mean, if I could sum it all up, I'd say the game is a lot of fun, but I feel like they have a lot of issues that need to be addressed at the same time.
Within my experience over the past 2 to 3 years, it's been questionable, mostly due to bugs, lags, and hitboxes mainly. Dead by Daylight should actually change a few things if they actually thought about it. Instead of creating more content, I feel like they should have an entire chapter dedicated to a healthy chapter, we'll call it that, where we just fix everything, including dealing with campers and tunnelers, instead of having to deal with that, to actually make the game more fun and controlling.
It definitely still needs a lot of work. They need to really test out the game when they try to release their DLC, so that they're not having all the issues that they have, because every time a new DLC comes out, it's like they're got to try to fix 20 other things. I feel like they're not really listening too much to the gamers as far as what needs to be fixed. Rather, they would just try to cover it up with some cosmetics and stuff. As far as that, I mean, that's kind of like the negative side of everything. It's still a pretty cool horror game, and being able to play competitively against somebody else is pretty cool. But you know, I almost feel like the devs are kind of taking one side overall, you know, being the killer side, and pretty much amping them up rather than the survivors. I think they kind of need to work on that.
Well, playing Dead by Daylight for only like 3 months now, I think. It's being a new game and playing exclusively with friends for a good bit of it was really fun until I actually kind of got a part of the community. Mainly just saying the game is it's a roller coaster that isn't enjoyable for half of it. Best way to put it, it'd just be after dealing with so many of the good stuff, it finally when the moment you get a brand new update which literally breaks everything, and then after learning that this happens for every update, at least for the past like 3 or 4, it's the pretty much the reason why I haven't played except for like once or twice for like since the RE chapter came out pretty much.
I've flip-flopped a lot on it, but I think that it's on the right track now. I haven't always felt that it was on the right track. I mean, I started playing it in 2016 when it came out on PS4 and like the original build of the game. So from where it was then to now, at first I thought this was a terrible game. I'm never ever going to play this. And then when I came back years later and tried it on PC, I fell in love with it again. And then, I mean, there's a lot of things that have been broken on it, but I think with the new updates and things like that, I think that they're making an effort to help balance the game and make it, you know, a healthier game overall so that it could last longer than it had, you know, maybe I thought it would in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a cool game. I mean, I've found myself sinking hours and hours into it. I don't have as many hours as other people, but I have like 500 hours in it, which is more than any other game I play. So, I think probably the thing that keeps people hooked on Dead by Daylight is it's super accessible. I mean, you're just running away from somebody. It's not like, you know, you get somebody and you throw them on like Valorant or Call of Duty. If they have bad aim, like, you know, good luck having fun with that game. Either of those games, any first-person shooter. But I think what's simple with DBD is that it's just, are you good at running and throwing down pallets and fixing generators and things like that? So I think it's super accessible, and that's probably why it's survived as long as it has, because it's the only type of multiplayer game I can think of where you can be absolutely terrible at every other multiplayer game but be good at Dead by Daylight. I think that simplicity is probably what keeps me coming back and playing. It's the only game I can play when I'm drunk and I'm not terrible at. And yeah, I think it's a great game. I think it started out terrible and it's only gotten better with time.
I feel like it has a lot of great potential, but it has a really toxic player base, which makes it hard to be great.
Well, that was my video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. This is my first time trying out this type of format, and who knows, maybe I might do more, maybe I just might stick to the same content. But yeah, thanks for watching.